East side, B side, what side are you on?
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of A-Side, B-Side podcast. Hello, Adam.
Hello, Brooke. How are you today?
Good. It's starting to change weather-wise here, so I'm starting to realize the Midwest cold, and it's okay. So it does get cold here, but it's not just the cold. It's because it's so flat. There's like no mountains or anything to block the wind. So the wind, not only does it come in real hard, it's like real strong and cold. Like the other day, I think I asked Google and it was like 27 miles per hour or something like that.
It'll flat out knock you over.
Like in my car, I'm driving. I'm like, whoa, this wind is crazy.
Yeah, earlier this morning, my puppy wanted to go out on the deck because she was like, oh, I want to go outside. And then she goes out there and she's all like 30 pounds. And we're on the fourth floor. So the wind gets pretty gusty. And all of a sudden this big gust of wind came and it moved the big wooden Adirondack chair that I have out there. And it made her take 2 steps. And she just turned around and came right back inside. It was like, nope. Forget that.
If she could have sent a meme, it would have totally been nope.
Nope. Yeah, it's like not doing that anymore. But yeah, the wind, because even when it's 45 and the sun's out, you're like, oh, okay. And then the wind blows and it's like, why am I frozen?
Yes. So I think I told you last time I went ahead and rented a garage because I was like, I am not trying to come out at 5 a.m. and my car is frozen and I'm frozen. So no, absolutely not.
That's a good choice, I think. Because you don't want to be out there with the ice scraper at 5 a.m.
Right.
Because that's everyone thinks who doesn't live in climates that have a ton of wintry months that snow's the biggest problem. And honestly, snow it's a pain in the butt, but we can push it to the side. Ice is the worst. Ice is so much worse. I can go outside and I can scrape snow off my windshield and I can push it to the side. I got windshield wipers. I can push it off. If you want to be an idiot and just drive and hope it all blows off, you can be that guy, but it goes away. Ice, you got to get out there with a hammer and chisel and chop the stuff off.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to deal with that at 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't have time. No. I'm not, and I don't want to have to get up earlier. I know that's probably lazy, but I already get up really early. I don't want to have to get up 30 minutes earlier just to chisel ice. So, did you watch any? I don't think I've seen any movies since the last time we spoke. No. Oh, I didn't know. Did I tell you about The Harder They Fall? Did I watch that?
We talked a little bit about it. Yeah.
Okay.
And how much you like the soundtrack.
Yes. No, I don't think I've seen any movies. Finished Ted Lasso. I'm so sad that I finished Ted Lasso and I was waiting to watch the episode. And my daughter, I got her watching it and then she finished it before I did. And she's like, you got to watch it so we can talk about it. And I was like, no, I don't want to finish it. And I finished it. And now I'm like, I need to just rewatch it all over again.
It's amazing. Well, I guess it's not amazing, but it's definitely a sign of modern life. The watching something together and whether or not somebody has gotten ahead on streaming or not, or because it was before the streaming era, it was did you watch last night's show? Oh, you missed it.
Right. I can explain it to you, but if you didn't see it, oh well.
Yeah, it wasn't oh, hey, I have to wait for you to catch up on streaming because I can watch 5 episodes ahead. It was oh, if you're 5 episodes ahead, that means that you just stopped watching the show in the 1980s.
Right.
Yeah. But now it's people, I've had talks with friends who are having relationships problems because somebody read ahead or watched ahead.
It's a big thing. There was a term for it and I can't remember what it was, but Netflix cheating basically, or Hulu cheating, or streaming cheating because somebody's started watching, you started a show together and they've snuck and watched an episode without you or something.
I've actually abandoned series because I was watching it with somebody that perhaps I was like hanging out with at the time or dating, and then that relationship ended. So then I felt like I couldn't continue watching the show, which is so absurd. Like I'm like, oh well, that was our show, so I guess I'll just never finish that series because not only did the relationship ended, but I have to also end this TV relationship. It's absurd.
It is amazing how like how deep into it people get. Like, you watch this without me, or I can't believe you, or how you need to catch up, or and then like the conversations that people get into about certain shows, like you start talking about them like they are real people. And I don't know if it's, has it always been like that, or is it because we can binge and we get so invested? Because when you have an episode and then you've got to wait 7 more days to see it again, or you have to wait until it goes into reruns, I guess you don't have that time to build up the affection for characters, and you don't get so invested. But when you can sit and watch 3, 4, 5, 6 episodes in a row, you get really invested.
I think I would compare it to like, so when we had the week in between, that relationship happens between you and the characters happens over a longer time. So people would fall deeper in love with shows because it took a long time for the, affection to develop. Whereas I think when we're streaming, we're just like constantly like spree infatuation. Like when you start a relationship, you just like hang out all the time and you're super excited, but then like it's all like popcorny, like it just kind of fizzles really quick. I feel like we're doing that with all the shows. Like we get super into it, and then like 2 months down the line, we're not like into it anymore. Whereas like older shows, if they were around and they were coming around every week, it was like an established relationship. And like when MASH left or when Cheers left, people were like, this is like a big part of my life leaving, because it's like a regular every week thing for like the last 7 years, not something I did over the weekend.
Right. What am I going to do with this chunk of time now?
Yeah. This is a part of my life, not just a part of my current infatuation. So I think we get infatuated with a lot more, but I don't feel like we fall in love like we used to.
No, that makes sense. That's coming from the A side.
Yeah, evidently. Not only is this your number one Angelina Jolie podcast, it's also now an awkward relationship podcast. Two things I know nothing about.
I read an interesting fact, speaking of shows that people are head over heels in love with. And I think it was because of that week to week thing. The Office, that's a show that's got like a following. And now that you can binge it, people, when people are like looking for something to watch, like, I just put on The Office again. I've seen it, whatever. Yeah. But now there's like there's the podcast, The Office Ladies and stuff like that. But so,
which just I think I saw today celebrated its 100th episode this week.
Nice.
So nice. I guess they started before us, but I didn't remember that.
Just a little bit. But it has just come out that apparently one of the plot points that they were going to do on The Office is they were going to have Jim cheat on Pam. And then John Krasinski said, no, absolutely not. And he said, there comes a point, you can push fans to a point, but then you push them so far they won't come back. He said, and I think that's the breaking point, because Jim and Pam was one of the strong points that everybody really loved of The Office.
Yeah, and you want that like fairy tale romance. Like everybody's experienced like they've got those friends where everything seems great and it's real life, and then something happens to their relationship, and now you were like, whoa, I couldn't believe it would happen to them. You don't want to see that in your escapism television show.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, maybe if it was like LA Law or like some dramedy or like, even ER or something where it's a little bit more intense, but like it was like the only bright spot of the show.
Yeah, not those, not the shows that you've been longing for these characters to finally get together, and they do, and then you're like, well, now we're gonna break you up. What? No, don't you dare do that to me.
Yeah, that one of the weird things is like The Office somehow avoided that pratfall. Now I'm making a pun on accident with Chris Pratt being on a different show, but where like if a show's entirely built around will they or won't they, then when they do, it's like, can the show continue?
Mm-hmm.
And The Office just transitioned just fine.
Yeah, they did. They
In
did.
fact,
Some
it got
shows
better.
they do have that hard time, but you're right. I think they did a really good job with that transition.
Like one of my favorite shows, Castle, they did that for like years. Like, where they going to get together, and they got together, then they pushed them apart for something else, and they brought them back together, and they pushed them back apart, and they brought them back together. And the two actors were actually dating, and then they broke up. In the last season, they like barely spoke to each other. So,
Oh, Nathan Fillion. Yeah, he's on The Rookie right now.
yeah, that's got to be in its like 4th or 5th season by this point.
It is. I think it's its 5th season, and they just signed or they are one of the first shows to get rid of live weapons. And I love how we've just transitioned all the way to a completely different subject, but they're one of the first shows.
As we do.
I know. If you've been with us for these 70 episodes now, you know this. But they are one of the first to transition into not using live weapons on set after the Helena Hutchins Russ met.
It just feels weird that that it took this long.
Yeah.
And I guess it's not something that I really thought about, but like with everything they can do with special effects, why would you ever need, like, haven't needed live weapons for a very long time. But
yeah. But so there's that.
I guess there are people out there that would say not having live weapons would be like not having real cars in a police chase or in a car chase. But no, we do just fine with the special effects.
I think so too. And George Clooney has like come out and spoken about it, and it's far from over.
When was the last time George Clooney was in a movie with guns?
That's a good question, because I think even in the Ocean's movies,
there's like if there's a gun, it's not a vital plot point,
right?
He had the Peacemaker back in the 90s when we all thought he was going to become a action star with him and Nicole Kidman.
Isn't it funny to think that was a possibility, and now we're like, George Clooney, ha! There's no way he could be an action star.
Yeah, I mean, but it was like that was a possibility. I mean, he was in The Thin Red Line and Three Kings. Well, there's Guns and Burn After Reading. Yeah,
but yeah, it's been a long time.
No, it was just another offshoot, as we are prone to do.
Did you see anything good this week?
I did what I have been doing lately, just rewatching stuff. I'm still plowing through Warehouse 13. I rewatched both Black Widow and Shang-Chi this week, which is really cool. Shang-Chi is on Disney Plus.
Yes, it's on Disney Plus. He posted a TikTok the other day because critics projected that it was just not going to do well and it wasn't going to make any money, and then it just killed everybody's expectations. So he posted this Simu Lee, is it Lou? Simu Liu posted this like video where he's like dancing and having a good time, and it was great. And it's so great that the movie, because it's an awesome movie, and it's great that it exceeded all these crappy critic expectations.
Yeah, well, and at some point we got to be like, why are we looking at critics for fun popcorny movies? If
right,
like the same guy who's going to tell me that Life is Beautiful is a great movie, which okay, but it's very different from Avengers. But so is every movie going to be compared to Life is Beautiful as like that style of movie? Because that's a very depressing film.
Right.
Did you see there on Twitter this week a actual San Francisco Metro Transit bus driver?
Yes, I love it.
Oh, so broke down the fight scene on the bus as to like what would happen and like the bus driver's actions and things that were like even down to like the streets that they're on.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. It was like, so good.
The one part where everybody's taking pictures, he's like, yeah, that would definitely happen.
Yeah, this would totally happen. And the stop request gag. He's like, yeah, I left out loud. That would have happened the moment that that the fight broke out. All right, so I've got the thread, and I'm gonna email that to you so we can tweet it, so we can post it on our webpage, because it is so good, and it's complete with screenshots and just everything. It absolutely blew up. But if you've recently watched the movie, you know the bus fight. If you saw the trailer, you know the bus fight, and
Yes.
it is just so well done. See, like, how do I do this? Sharing tweets. I feel like, how do I do this? I'm very old.
On the Twitter.
On the Twitter. All right, I'm gonna send it. I'm gonna send it. We got a Twitter.
We've got a Twitter.
I'm just gonna send it to you, Brooke, because I can't find our Twitter.
Okay.
So that we can post it on the web page, and everyone can check it out. So even if you're not a huge Twitter person, but you've seen the movie, highly recommend checking out the thread, because it is very entertaining.
Oh, speaking of Twitter, can I just share that I'm very excited that I had a tweet that, like, would you consider it viral? Kind of.
I would say you had two,
Yeah.
Twitter moments recently. I mean, I was a little concerned that I was just going to get this message being like, sorry, I'm big time. I can't do the podcast. I'm like, call me when you've been retweeted. I was like, oh.
So yeah, you're right. I did have two. So the first one was so Patton Oswalt has announced a show here in Lincoln, and so we got to announce the show. Like, we got to be the first people to announce the show. And so I tweeted, like, I retweeted his tweet about coming to the show. And I just said, man, I moved to Lincoln in time, because I'm pumped about the show or whatever. And I was like, and we got to be the station to, break the news. Pumped. He like retweeted it, and it got like so many likes and retweets and comments. And so that was really cool.
Big time.
And then Rex Chapman. If you are a sports person, you automatically know Rex Chapman. If you are a Twitter person, you know Rex Chapman, because he's big in both worlds.
Yeah, he finds the best stuff to retweet.
He really does. He posts some good stuff. And so Rex Chapman, former UK basketball player, had a really rough go at it, but like has come back, and he's just like huge on Twitter. Like, he is like huge. And for some reason, he follows me on Twitter. I don't know how. Right. And then he had posted the other day about Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up. And like, he was like, this is the day it was released in 1987. And I made an offhand comment like, yeah, I had the chance to interview him recently because he's going on tour with New Kids on the Block. One of the sweetest guys that you'll ever talk to. And I was like, and he totally owns that this one song made his career. And he like liked it and retweeted it. And it's gotten so many, it's almost up to like 900 likes.
Well, and he responded to it too, didn't he?
He did.
He tweeted it being like, hey, that's really awesome to hear. It's always cool that, like, it's scary to meet your heroes because they never live up to you. Something like that. Like, never meet your heroes because they'll disappoint you or something. But I met Mr. T, and he was pretty cool.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was kind of like, holy cow, that's so cool. So
it was a big Twitter week.
It was a big Twitter week.
Yeah. So unfortunately, this will be our last A-Side B-Side podcast, as I've been replaced by Patton Oswalt.
My head has gotten really big, and so therefore we have no reason to talk anymore.
Yeah, that's story Adam's life.
Oh gosh. Anyway, so this week, 70 episodes, Adam.
Yes. 70, which is funny because when I read that the Office ladies were 100, my brain was like, wait, I thought we started before them. And I'm like, I'm bad at remembering time. But yeah, 70 weeks. It's a very long time.
It is.
But I mean, it's gone quickly because it's been fun. And I'm pretty sure that we've never done the same topic twice, which I'm kind of amazed at. So with it being an even week, that means that I get to go first. And I almost spoiled my A-side this week when we were talking about what we've done in terms of our viewing habits over the last week, because I did watch something again last night that led to today's A-side, as often is the case. But I almost mentioned it during our little preamble and ruined the surprise. But we are 70 episodes in, and I think that might be a record for an entertainment podcast never talking about Harry Potter.
Oh.
And this week was the 20-year anniversary of when the first Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, came out in theaters back in 2001. And there have been hundreds of thousands of podcasts and minutes and stories debated, dedicated to Harry Potter over the years. So it's not like I'm going to break any new ground, but I wanted to talk today about what kind of connected me to Harry Potter. Mm-hmm. And then I did some research into, and for Harry Potter fans, all this stuff is going to be, they'd heard it before, but 5 new things that I learned about Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone here on its 20th anniversary. But first, a little story about how I got into Harry Potter. So Harry Potter came out in the late 90s, and I was in high school and college at the time and just thought I was too old for it. I had just reread Lord of the Rings, and I was like, that's, Harry Potter's kid stuff. I'm like 18. I don't need to be paying attention to Harry Potter. And so I really avoided the books. I didn't have any interest in them. And then the movie came out, and my girlfriend at the time was super into Harry Potter and we were living apart at the time. And so was planning on going. So I went with friends up here who were also super into it so we could talk about it, because, we were talking on the phone and existing that way. And I saw the movie and I enjoyed it. And I started to say, okay, maybe I need to give these a chance. But Harry Potter for me will always be about the books themselves and the road trip that we took from California to Minnesota in the summer of 2002, or spring and summer. So I flew out to California. My fiance at the time, we piled everything into a Ford Focus and drove back. And instead of listening to music the entire time or talk radio, my fiance sat in the passenger seat and we read all 4 of the Harry Potter books that were out at the time out loud on that car trip. And I was definitely skeptical about giving it a chance. I was like, I don't know. It's, it's made for kids. I just read Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is more mature and cool. We should, that not really for my age range. And I just remember driving, how many hours, multiple days, listening and reading through literally every single book that had been published at that time and falling absolutely in love with the series. So this last week, Harry Potter's kind of been something that I have left in the past with when that relationship ended, was not something that I've really kept up on. It was going back and rewatching the first one and thinking about the story and the connection to it. And I feel about Harry Potter now much the way that I feel about Shakespeare, in that it should be experienced first in its most natural form. And by that, I mean, we do a giant disservice to the, high school students of America or the world when we hand them Shakespeare on a page and make them read it out loud in class, when it was never meant to be read. It was meant to be seen and as performed. Mm-hmm. It was like the equivalent of taking, Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin and handing kids a bunch of sheet music and saying, hum this. You're not going to get the same experience. That's why I think if you have only seen the movies, that going back and reading the books of Harry Potter, and I think a lot of people have seen both. I mean, Harry Potter fans are maybe the most fanatical fandom that I have encountered. And that's, I live in the Trekkie world and the Star Wars people and the Marvel comic book people. I think Harry Potter fans may be the most fanatical and dedicated and know every single thing about the series. But if you haven't read the books, I think you will experience the story in an entirely different way. And I was reminded by going through some of the research that I've done the last couple of days about the movie The Sorcerer's Stone, how much changed and little things changed between the book and the movie, and how the movie and the success of the franchise has kind of redefined how some of these characters were, even down to, if you think about the characters, you visualize them. You think of Daniel Radcliffe as Harry Potter, and Rupert Grint as Ron Weasley, and Emma Watson as Hermione, and they just embody the characters, whereas the characters as written were a little bit different. I mean, Daniel Radcliffe pretty much looks exactly like the kid on the cover of the books, but in the book, he's got green eyes, and in the movie, he's got blue eyes. J.K. Rowling has been interviewed saying that it's really good that she talked to Emma Watson on the phone first before she met her, because when she talked to her, the energy and the fact that she was so excited, she spoke for 90 seconds without even taking a breath, and how just talking to her, J.K. Rowling was like, oh, you're perfect for the role. And then she met her and she's like, oh, but you're also really beautiful. And if she had met her before she talked to her, she may have let the fact that she looked different than the character in the books, whereas Hermione in the books is much more mousy, and she's got buck teeth and wild hair. And it's just, even though in the first movie they tried to give Emma Watson wild hair, you can't hide that.
Right.
We all know Emma Watson as Hermione, whereas in J.K. Rowling's mind, it was a different look, and how that would have changed. I highly recommend, especially in this season, if you get a chance to revisit the books or to read them for the first time, to do so, even though the rest of the A-side is going to be talking about a movie. So, soapbox off, check out the books. So, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone came out in 2001. It is the 20th anniversary. It made millions and millions of dollars. It's been watched hundreds of times by my children alone. It is a worldwide phenomenon. I mean, probably the favorite family vacation that my family has ever taken, whether I was a kid or as an adult, was when we went to Harry Potter's Wizarding World 3 years ago with my kids and my parents, and it was the best vacation and the funnest. I would highly recommend. Amusement parks, I'm kind of iffy on, but everything about Harry Potter's Wizarding World was worth it, and highly recommend checking it out. But there are a few things that I did not know and didn't realize until I was doing some research. So here are 5 things about Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone that Adam learned over the last week here on its 20th anniversary. Now, I knew that the book itself, when it was first published, had a name in one part of the world and then an American name. So everywhere else in the world, it is Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone.
Mm-hmm.
But Scholastic Books, who was the U.S. publisher, didn't think that it would catch kids' imagination because philosophers aren't all that interesting to kids. So they changed it to the Sorcerer's Stone. So in America, everyone knows it as Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and the movie, as it was released here, is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. But I knew the books were different. I didn't realize that the movie was different as well. So they, in every single scene in the movie where the stone is mentioned, they actually filmed that scene twice. Once with the characters saying Sorcerer's Stone, and once with them saying Philosopher's Stone.
Oh, wow.
So there are 2 complete different versions of the movie, depending on where you've seen it throughout the world, which I knew that was true of the book. I didn't realize that was true of the movie. So it is either they refilmed it when you could see the characters saying it. There's also one time when it is set off screen and you can hear Hermione's voice, and that was dubbed over twice as well. J.K. Rowling also famously was involved heavily in the film and was in the film adaptions and really fought to make it as true to the original work as possible. Even to the point of, at one point, Steven Spielberg was interested in directing the movie versions, but he either wanted to set it in an American high school or do it as an animated movie, kind of like Polar Express with motion capture, and do all 4 books as one movie. J.K. Rowling fought that none of that would ever happen, and that the cast would stay the story and the cast itself would stay very British, even to the point where some really famous actors wanted to be in the movie and even offered to do it for free and were told no. So Hagrid was played by Robbie Coltrane and was supposedly the first one cast, and who J.K. Rowling had in mind when she was creating the character of Hagrid. But Robin Williams asked to play Hagrid and offered to do it for free. Which I had no idea. I can't imagine that was very easy to turn down. Rosie, really? I mean, like when Robert Williams is like, "Hey, I want to be in your movie and I'll do it for free." I think most people would be like, "Oh, okay, sounds good." Rosie O'Donnell also offered to do it for free and wanted to take on the role of Molly Weasley, which would have been very different. But because Rowling said no, only British and Irish actors should be cast, they both were told thanks, but no thanks. The movie itself, even though some of the most memorable scenes are clearly CGI, the Quidditch scene, for example, the Quidditch game was very clearly on the early end. I mean, 2001 was pretty early for CGI. You've got it's very clearly cartoonish characters when you watch it. You mean
he doesn't really fly?
I know. However, the flying on a broom ride at Harry Potter's Wizarding World is amazing. You should definitely check that out. Okay. A lot of practical special effects were used in the film. And again, I don't feel like we really need to do spoiler alerts when it's 20 years old, and arguably the most famous film franchise in the world. But spoiler alert, there is towards the end of the movie, a very tense scene of giant wizard's chess where Ron, Hermione, and Harry are playing on these giant chess pieces. And each chess piece was actually real. It was a practical effect. They were up to 12 feet tall and weighing around 500 pounds and completely sculpted by the production team. The pieces moved with rigging and with radio control. So instead of it being, like styrofoam or plastic or even, CGI in some way, those are legit giant stone chess pieces that weighed a heck of a lot of pounds. And in the scene where Ron is on the knight and he gets taken out by the queen and he gets thrown off the horse as it explodes, the practical effects were a little too practical because he was actually injured in the scene. You can actually see in the movie still when one of the pieces hits him in the face and it cut his cheek. Oh, wow. So just a minor wrong, but a little too practical. Another near miss involving practical effects happened in the Great Hall. At one point, there are the floating candles that are above and the ceiling, which in one of the more sort of breaking the fourth wall moments, Hermione talks about the ceiling being enchanted and it's not really the ceiling. Well, and of course it's all CGI, so in a strange way it's enchanted as well. But the candles themselves were legitimate candles. They were candle-shaped holders containing oil and burning wicks that were suspended from wires that moved up and down on another special effects rig to create the impression that they were floating to give it a very real look. However, when you imagine you've got fire and wires, not the greatest mix in the world, because at one point the fire burnt through a wire and down came candle, fire and all. And luckily no one was hurt. But after that, they decided that maybe we should get rid of the real fire and move to CGI for the candles in the other films. Mm-hmm. Number 4, the main sort of background of the Philosopher's Stone. And this is not something that I realized even years ago when I watched the movie. I think I thought the Sorcerer's Stone and the entire idea of it was created by J.K. Rowling. I didn't realize it was a true legend, but Nicholas Flamel was maybe, possibly, a real person, or the story is at least based on him. Of course, in the movie, he's the creator of the titular Philosopher's Stone or Sorcerer's Stone, but he's also figured as a plot device in stories with Batman, Indiana Jones, and even showed up in the Da Vinci Code. He was a French scribe and manuscript merchant. And after he died, there was a legend that he was an alchemist and had discovered this Philosopher's Stone and thereby achieved immortality, so he wasn't really dead. And this has been a European legend for years, and I, just being a ugly American, didn't realize it until I did some research for a movie. But evidently, it all goes back to him as a manuscript salesperson, bought a weird book, and then couldn't figure out what it was about. And he finally found a sage who identified the book as a copy of the original book of some mage. And then he translated it from Hebrew with his wife and figured out how to get the eternal elixir, the elixir of eternal life. So evidently that is a commonly known thing that I had no idea, but it could have been a real person. And my favorite one and I've definitely seen, like I said, my kids were super into Harry Potter, still are. My son went as Harry from the moment he got glasses in, I think, the second or third grade. He went as Harry Potter for every Halloween for like 5 years because he had the wire glasses, he had the haircut, he looked like he was a little blonde Harry Potter. He looked like a strange Malfoy Potter, amalgam or something. So I've seen Sorcerer's Stone many times, and I've never noticed this until I was doing this research. Harry goes the entire movie without successfully casting a spell.
The whole movie?
The whole movie. So he accidentally causes magic to happen a couple times. Mm-hmm. When at the beginning of the movie, he's at the zoo and his cousin Dudley is being a jerk to the snake, and then the glass disappears and Dudley falls in.
Yep.
Totally, did magic by accident. He tried out the wands, and all sorts of weird stuff happened in Ollivander's wand shop, which, again, going back to the Harry Potter's Wizarding World theme park, checking out the Ollivander's wand shop. My kids each got a wand, and it was the coolest thing because basically you relive that entire scene just with your kids going in, and it's all scripted and the stuff pops out. It was super cool.
Oh, nice.
And then, of course, in the spoiler alert climax, when he defeats Quirrell and Voldemort, the only thing that he does is have the power of his mother's love, which makes his skin basically poison to Quirrell and Voldemort. So the kid never actually casts a spell the entire movie on screen. I'm sure he does some in class. This is another thing, but never in the entire movie does he cast a spell and he becomes the victor. Which kind of goes back to some people feeling like Harry Potter is the luckiest guy on earth as opposed to the best, or as Hermione once said, called him a great wizard. You have to actually cast some spells to be a great wizard. So,
yeah.
So those are 5 things that I learned about the 20th anniversary of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. You, of course, can watch it on Peacock Plus. So if you've got the Peacock app, all of the Harry Potter movies are on there available. And said, if you're looking for a perfect Christmas gift, getting the books and reading them again with your kids, or even as an adult, reading them yourself, I highly recommend. And it will probably bring a little bit more spirit to your Christmas season.
Now, did you know that after the new year, the whole gang is getting back together to do like a review, and also you can watch the 8-film collection on HBO Max, and then they're going to get together and do like an interview.
I think I just saw the trailer for that yesterday. Mm-hmm. So like the first time, or I think Emma Watson tweeted it on Instagram or something. It on Instagram. Good job, old man.
J.K. Rowling apparently will not be there.
Yeah. she's courted more controversy over the last years than she has a way of putting her foot in her mouth.
Yeah, but so I pulled an Adam this week, and I got to tell you where you could watch something.
Yeah. So now she's Twitter famous, and she's doing the A side.
I really don't need you anymore.
Oh, it's nice knowing you, everybody. I can't believe I made it 70 episodes.
But I thought that's pretty cool that HBO Max released the full, like you said, Peacock. They've got the full film collection so that you can like refresh and then you can, revisit it with the cast, because they've got like Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, what's his name, Malfoy, I believe, is coming back.
Tom Felton.
Tom Felton, Rupert Grint, I believe they're all coming back for it. So
yeah, and like one of the things I found is Emma Watson said at 9 years old that she had a crush on Tom Felton, and I'm like, I don't need that. I don't need that in my brain. I don't want to know Hermione having a crush on Draco. I know it's their real character, they're actors and stuff, but no, I don't need that. So as we're talking about so last Christmas, I'm sending you a picture. Last Christmas, one of my impulse buys on Black Friday, because I'm notorious for on Black Friday buying just gifts for me, because I'm like, ooh, I want that. I bought the entire Harry Potter 8 film collection on Blu-ray, of course, which I have not opened, just sitting here on my desk, on my dresser. So I guess you could catch it on HBO Max. You can watch it on Peacock, or you could just borrow it from Adam.
Right. His address is.
No, yeah. Shoot me a text.
Oh, wow. It's not as thick as I expecting. I guess they just make them smaller. The box sets, they make them smaller now, but
yeah, well, and it's like doesn't take up, like, it literally takes up the space of like one DVD.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Like I remember when I still have several collections of VHS, and it's like when you get like the 5 VHS Star Trek thing that like the side, like the cases all make a picture when they're all pushed in, that took up some space on the shelf.
Right. So are you going to watch the reunion?
Oh yeah. I watched I've watched 1, 2, and 3 in the last week already. So I'm just like full on just back into it. So okay. I've watched a lot of Harry Potters. I'm definitely interested in seeing that, especially because I believe the Harry Potter and the Cursed Child is being turned into a movie as well now too.
Oh, okay. Well, they're gonna have to recast.
Well, no, because so it was the play that Rowling wrote that premiered on the West End, but it takes place when Harry and Hermione and Ron are parents.
Oh, okay. Oh,
yeah.
Well.
So like it fits from a timeline.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think when my kids were little, I know we watched the very first one because they were kind of into it then, and then we watched the second one, and I think they kind of both were like, okay, we're done.
Did you ever discover which house you're in?
I did not.
Oh,
I never did the sorting hat.
You got to go to wizardingworld.com and do the sorting hat, because I have an assumption.
Okay. Okay, wait, hold on. I'm going to try to do this really fast so we're not taking up everybody's time. But okay, I'm going to do it, and then you.
Well, yeah. So wizardingworld.com. It takes a while. We might have to like two-part this one. Have you come back, because you got to register. Then there's like, it's like a 20 or 30 question thing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like the new Myers-Briggs, I think.
Okay, so then I will do this, and then next week, I'll reveal, and then you can tell. Or do you want to predict it now?
No, I'll predict it, but if I tell you, then it'll influence your answers.
Oh, okay.
So I have my prediction.
Okay.
And I've even got like a sliding like percentage scale.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So next week I will tell you, and then you can tell me if you were right.
Yeah, and I've written it down. Like, I really think it's like I'm 60% sure it's going to be this. Then I'm like 25% sure it's this, 10% sure it's this, and then like 5%.
All right. So is that the A side?
That is the A side.
Okay.
Go watch Harry Potter.
So mine has nothing to do with Wizarding World or hats or sorting. Mine is more crime, bad checks, cattle theft, and couples, older couples.
I mean, how many times have we had cattle theft on here? It feels like every week.
Right. I mean, a good old cattle. Is it a true crime story if there's not some cattle theft?
True.
I mean,
is it the A side, B side? If we haven't stolen a cow.
So this week we're going to talk about a couple that kind of got into not crime, but into the murder game late in life. So this is the story of the Copelands, Ray and Faye. Ray Copeland was born December 30th of 1914 in Oklahoma to Jess and Lanny Copeland. He was born after the start of World War I, and so of course that meant he was growing up during the Great Depression. So Ray's family moved around a lot to survive. They eventually settled in Ozark Hills, Arkansas. Well, during the family's many moves, Jess and Laney had two more children, a girl and a boy. They're settled in Ozark Hill, and in the midst of the fourth grade, Ray ends up dropping out of school to help the family on the farm. Now, of course, Great Depression, they're struggling. Of course, they had to move around a lot. But despite all of this, it appears that Ray was a very demanding, spoiled child, and he received whatever he wanted when he asked, regardless of cost. When Ray was about 20 years old, he commits his very first crime. He stole 2 hogs from his father, Jess, and sold them in town. Jess discovered the theft, but never pressed formal charges against Ray. So we've got a spoiled kid who, even though his family, gave
him
everything, he still has this need to steal. Apparently, the lack of consequences obviously didn't teach Ray any lessons because his petty crimes continued. Mm-hmm. Livestock stealing was his game. That cattle theft, like I said, not true crime if we're not stealing some cattle.
Right.
He's stealing livestock and he's forging checks. Eventually, he gets caught and he serves a year in jail in 1936 in Harrison, Arkansas. Ray's released, and that same year, so it was a little bit after 1936, so like 38-ish. And so like he's released, and in 1940, he visits a doctor. He goes to a doctor's visit and he meets Della, Faye Della Wilson. I couldn't get it out.
I like how there was like a remix of the name in there.
So So Faye. Yeah. Faye Della Wilson is okay. They meet, and the two, they like meet, and it's like instant connection. They like are head over heels for each other, and they move real quick. Within 6 months, they're married.
Dang.
And then they don't waste any time starting a family. They're like, boom, we meet, we're married, let's have some babies.
Well, that'll happen. It's the 1930s.
Yeah. Everett is their first child, born in 1941. 2 years later, in 1943, Billy Ray is born. They move around. They end up in Fresno. We'll talk about that in a second, where Betty Lou was born in 1945. In 1947, Alvia was born, and William Wayne was born in 1949. So altogether, 5 children.
It's a lot of kids.
Yeah, 5 children in 8 years? I mean, they were busy.
Yeah, they went big.
All right, let's quickly talk about Fella Day. Faye Della Wilson Copeland. So Faye Della Wilson was born August 4th of 1921 to Rufus and Gladys Wilson in Harrison, Arkansas. Of course, Harrison is where Ray and Faye met. So the Wilsons were a really hardworking couple. Rufus and Gladys had 7 children that they raised in a dirt floor cabin. All right. So due to Ray's criminal reputation, the Copelands had to stay on the move, which, is something he knew about from when he was growing up. His family had to constantly move for different reasons, though.
Right.
So money, of course, very tight. And then you add to that Ray's criminal pursuits. I mean, he kept it going, which meant he was going to get caught. And so he ends up in jail several times. Oof. Okay. In the course of the kids growing up and they're moving. Finally, he comes up with a plan to make some money, but he thinks this is a foolproof plan. Of course, it's illegal, right?
Well, yeah, most foolproof plans are.
Right. Let's talk a little bit more about Ray's criminal interests before his big plan. So the year that William Wayne was born in 1949, Ray is accused of stealing horses from a local farmer. No charges are filed against Ray, but word got out and it ruined his reputation. This was in Fresno County, California, where Betty Lou was born. Mm-hmm. So his reputation is ruined. Forces the family to move. They move back to Arkansas. Less than a month after they moved back to Arkansas, Ray was arrested for stealing cattle. Ray is found guilty of grand larceny, and he's sentenced to a year in prison. Then he's released in 1950, and Ray moves the family to Rocky Comfort, Missouri, where, surprise, he's arrested yet again for cattle theft.
Like, how? I mean, I don't know. I don't have a lot of background in livestock thievery, but it would just seem really hard to steal and then resell livestock.
You would think.
But this guy, he keeps trying it, so there had to be some profit in it.
I guess.
Because he didn't get caught the first time every time.
Exactly. So get this. He's arrested again, and then his sentence, manual labor at the judge's farm. I mean, he got off almost as easy as Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yeah.
But okay. So this time after his release, the family moves to Illinois. Between 1953 and 1961, the family moves around constantly. And over that 8-year period, he's arrested 3 more times on 3 separate check forgery charges.
And it's not like they're moving from Iowa to Illinois. It's Arkansas to California, back to Arkansas right? To Illinois. I mean, this is the 1940s, 50s. This is a lot of moving.
That's some big moves, okay? Some huge moves. Yeah, and you got 5 kids and a wife. Come on. I had me and my kid and 2 dogs, and I was like, I don't ever want to do that again. So I can't imagine.
Never moving.
In 1961, Ray purchases 20 cattle with a bad check. He's caught and sentenced to 9 months in prison. He's released. He goes to an auction and he buys 19 more cattle. Totally legit this time. Yeah, not really. Not really.
I was of course, now he magically has
No. And again, he uses a bad check. And again, he's caught and sentenced to another 9 months in prison. This dude loves prison and hard labor. Seriously.
Well, he's got 5 kids under 8 at home. I mean,
he's probably I just need some sleep.
Yeah, it's I'm just gonna go get some days off. Go get in jail.
After his release, 52-year-old Ray and his family moved to Mooresville, Missouri. Ray and Faye purchased a small farm with 40 acres of land. Faye starts working at a glove making company. They are quiet, at least they're under the radar for a few years. So that's, the 1960s. We move to the early 70s. Ray, who'd been formulating money-making schemes, decided he had it, the perfect scheme. Okay. But since Ray had a reputation as a fraud, he wasn't able to buy and sell cattle under his own name. So to circumvent his problem, he began picking up drifters and hobos and employing them as farmhands on his property in Mooresville.
Okay.
He would then take his employees to the market. They would purchase the cattle using his checks, and they would sign his name. He would get the cattle, and he would quickly sell his ill-gotten gains before authorities caught on.
Okay.
The employees because their hobos and drifters would vanish. So when authorities do catch on, he's able to deny any knowledge of this because it's not his real signature. And now they're gone, so they can't be questioned.
Not a bad scam.
He escapes getting caught until he doesn't. Police always had their doubts about his innocence, but they couldn't prove it.
Like, how do we prove this? He's got these hobos and drifters.
Right. Enter Gerald Perkins, a drifter who Ray hired, who was caught by police. Gerald spills the beans. Like, he's like, let me tell you the dates, the times, the check numbers. He spills it all, okay?
He's like 6'9" in court. Like, what do you want? I'll tell everybody.
Right. So the gig was up for Ray, who was then arrested. Ray goes to jail for 2 years. Ray gets released, and I guess in those 2 years, he fine-tunes his scheme because this time, instead of using his name in checks, he would still hire the drifters and the hobos.
Right, because just unlimited supply of drifters and hobos.
And people like, well, okay, in the 70s too, you got to think all the hitchhikers and stuff like that. People were a lot more trusting because we've talked about that several times before.
Yeah, where hitchhiking was just it was the Uber of the 70s.
Yeah. This time, Ray picks up his drifters, and instead of having them sign his name to the checks, what he has them do is he has them using their own name. He has them get a P.O. box and open up bank accounts, and then they write the checks on their accounts. But of course, it's still bad because it's not like they have the money.
Nope.
So he is able to convince them to do this because he says, oh, the auctioneers, they're out to get me. They don't like me. They're not going to give me a fair shot at buying the cattle.
They don't like me because I associate with drifters and hobos.
Right. I'm trying to just help you out, and then they're going to hold it against me. But I guess Ray learned from Gerald because now, after he got what he needed from the employees, well, he would permanently make sure they weren't able to get caught and talk to police.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. So again, Ray's able to get away with this for a while until he wasn't. Jack McCormick on August 20th of 1989.
Goodness
So
gracious.
imagine
20-something.
Yeah, he got away with this for a long time. So on August 20th of 1989, Jack calls what's basically a Crime Stoppers hotline to tell them about Ray and Faye. He tells police that Ray tried to kill him and that while he was on the property of the farm, he found human bones. First, the police are like, I mean, I know he's a liar and a cheater and a fraud, but is he a murderer?
Yeah.
Because it's such a farce. I mean, it is a stretch, but come on. I mean, if you know somebody has this criminal history for how long?
Yeah.
They start looking into Ray's criminal past and they're like, well, okay, maybe. On October 9th, so it went from August to October, it took them. On October 9th of 1989, the sheriff and about 40 officers with search warrant in hand go and search the Copeland farm. They have with them bloodhounds, and at first they don't really find much of anything, but they keep searching and they keep searching. They end up finding bodies. They find the bodies of 3 young men in the barn who had been employed at the farm.
Ooh.
Oh, but this week-long search reveals more. So much more. So more bodies were found, along with the weapon that was used to kill them all, which is a .22 caliber Marlin rifle. Also discovered in the search, a list of the employees/victims' names written by Faye, and a quilt that Faye had made from the clothing of the farmhands. If that's not the most cold-blooded...
That's dark.
That is so cold-blooded, man. You're all snuggled up with these guys' shirts and you've thrown them in the barn? Like, wow. What? Yeah.
I mean, it's not as bad as like making clothes out of their skin, but it's
I mean, it's pretty up
dark.
there though.
Yeah. Well, they're not going to need them anymore.
Yeah, exactly. 3 bodies discovered in the barn were that of 21-year-old Paul Jason Cowart from Darndale, Arkansas, 27-year-old John W. Freeman of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and 27-year-old Jimmy Dale Harvey from Springfield, Missouri. The body of Wayne Warner was found in the barn under bales of hay that had been stacked to the ceiling. Dennis Murphy was found in an old well near Wayne Warner's body. The list that they found that Faye had written had 12 names on it. All 12 names were X'd out. Only 5 of the bodies were ever found and identified.
Oh, wow.
Uh-huh. Of course, it's becoming glaringly obvious that the employees were killed due to Ray's greed. But what about Faye? What was her part in this? Faye is, of course, arrested.
She definitely knew what was going on.
You would say so, right?
Yeah.
If she's making a quilt from their clothing, it's not, I mean, he could have been like, oh, honey, they just left it. Okay, 1 or 2 people, but 12?
Yeah.
Come on.
And you're making a quilt out of it?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Faye is arrested and she goes on trial on November 1st of 1990. She claims no knowledge of Ray's murders at all. She portrays herself as the loyal, dutiful wife, mother. She also says she's a victim of battered woman syndrome, that he used to beat her. The jury didn't really buy that, though. I don't know. I'm thinking maybe it was the quilt, but that's just me.
Yeah, I feel like the quilt will change some minds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Faye's convicted on 4 counts of murder and 1 count of manslaughter. She's given 4 death sentences, death by lethal injection, and life without parole for the manslaughter charge. After hearing about Faye's conviction, a sheriff asks Ray, "What are your thoughts?" He says, "Well, those things happen to some, you know." I mean, this dude is heartless. This woman that you've been with for how many years now? Since we're in 1990, you've been with her since 1940. So for 50 years, you've been with this woman, and you say, well, that's just what happens to some. On March 7th of 1991, Ray goes on trial. He's convicted on 5 counts of murder and sentenced to death by lethal injection. When asked how he felt about things, he says, "I'm okay."
Yeah, it's all good.
On October 19th of 1993, while awaiting his execution at Potosi Correctional Facility, Ray passes away from natural causes at the age of 78. His body is cremated. After his death, Faye's attorney appeals her conviction, claiming that the original jury didn't have the opportunity to hear her evidence of abuse. On August 6th of 1999, her death sentence was commuted to 5 consecutive life terms without parole by Judge Ortree Smith. Her revised sentence actually prompted some outrage from some various women's rights organizations, because they said, hey, look, she didn't get a fair shake. She's not even really a threat to society anymore. Why don't you let her out? Yeah, that didn't happen. Faye suffers a stroke on August 10th of 2002 that left her partially paralyzed and unable to speak. In September of 2002, Governor Holden took office January 8th of 2001. Okay. He authorizes a medical parole for Faye. Her one wish was she just didn't want to die in prison. So she's paroled to the Morningside Nursing Center in Chillicothe, Missouri. I don't know if I said that correctly. I think I did. Chillicothe?
Sounds good.
Chillicothe?
I'd added like 3 syllables.
She dies at the age of 82 from natural causes. She's survived by her 5 children and 17 grandchildren. The Copeland story was made into a fictionalized comic book called Family Bones, which was written by Ray's great nephew, Sean Granger. Creepy. Yeah. Oh. A comic book, like, of all things.
I guess you can't profit off your crimes, but your grandnephew can.
Right. Yeah. The play Temporary Help, written by David Wiltsey, based on the Copelands, appeared on Off-Broadway. Now, Adam, you already know this, but Off-Broadway means a venue in the Broadway Manhattan area that seats between 100 to 499 people. Mm-hmm. Broadway is 500 and more.
Yeah, so it's like small.
Yeah, but off Broadway is even smaller, because off Broadway is less than 100. So this is like between 100 and 500 people, really.
Yeah, still pretty good. Pretty good sized theater.
Pretty good size, but not Broadway size. Yes.
Yeah,
So
it's not like somebody's basement.
so that's why, if you never knew that, that's why it's called Off Broadway. It's not the location as it would seem, more the size. The case was featured on Forensic Files. The episode is called Killer's Cattle Log.
Oh, funny.
It was on season 6, episode 15, which you can see on IMDb TV for free. It was also on Wicked Attraction, the episode titled Murder at Twilight, season 1, episode 11, also on IMDb TV. And The New Detectives, the episode called Partners in Crime, season 5, episode 2, which is also available on IMDb TV for free.
Hey, IMDb TV's got some good stuff. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, it's got Schitt's Creek on there.
Murder, She Wrote. Hey.
I mean, don't you sleep on that IMDb TV.
The new Leverage series.
Oh, that's right. That is right. That's right.
It's good stuff.
So Criminal Minds season 6 also mentioned the Copelands as examples of serial killers that were active at advanced age. Faye was 69 and Ray was 76 when they were caught.
Goodness. That's just, seems like killing would take a lot of energy.
The killing grandparents. I mean, like, and then you think these kids, they're like 20s. How? I mean, I know they shot them, but like, I can't imagine. I don't know.
You gotta think the kids in their 20s probably were like, wow, these guys are a threat.
Exactly. Oh, it's a grandma and a grandpa.
Yeah. I can trust them.
Ray and Faye are the oldest couple ever sentenced to death in the United States. And there you have the story of Ray and Faye Copeland. I feel like when that one didn't like I know some of these like really hit you. I feel like that one where you were just like, I mean, they suck.
I mean, the only like really like disturbingly evil thing was like making a quilt out of their clothes. There was like, there wasn't any poisoning. It was just,
I feel like that's like some, like, what was the dude? Buffalo Bill. I feel like that's some Buffalo Bill level type stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that's creepy and weird, but like, I'm like, well, I can easily avoid this situation. I am not a hobo or drifter that you will work on that farm. So,
yeah,
I feel fairly insulated from them.
But there you go. That is the B-side.
I've also had to go to the bathroom very badly for 10 minutes.
All right, so I won't drag it out. That's been another episode of A-Side B-Side Podcast. Of course, you can like and support the podcast on all the streaming platforms. If you head on over to Apple and give us a like or review, we'd really appreciate that. That really does help with the podcast. You can check out pictures and sources on our website. Adam?
A-Side B-Side podcast.square.site.
Mm-hmm. I noticed he said P-side, but anyway.
I said B, but I did it in a weird accent. I don't know why. Like sometimes just years of not doing theater, voices are like, hey, you haven't used me in a while. Why don't you do this? Mid-sentence. A-side, B-side. I can't speak.
Oh, man. I was just making fun of you because you said, it sounded like you said P-side because you really have to use the bathroom. Anyway.
Yeah. I do. I drink too much Mountain Dew. That's what'll happen, kids.
All right. So you can also get to us on our Instagram, our Facebook, our Twitter. You can DM us. You can send us stories that you would like to hear, whether that's a true crime story or something that has to do with television shows and movies. We would love to hear about it. You can support the podcast by going to buymeacoffee.com/A-Side-B-Side-pod. And I think that we've covered it all. Correct, Adam?
Yeah. Just like and share our stuff when you see it on social media. That Twitter thread that was by the San Francisco area bus driver who breaks down the scene from Shang-Chi will be posted on one of our social sites. So make sure you check that out. Mm-hmm. And thank you for listening.
All right. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you, Brooke.